Yeah.
Does it have that really quick?
Yeah. Tomorrow.
Oh, but it didn't mention.
I didn't. I'm sorry. I screwed it up. I kept sending it to I was sending it to Hussam.
Oh.
And he was like, why are you sending me all this stuff? And I was like, I realized I had screwed it up. And so it's 1:45.
Okay, no worries.
Just on the stage. Nothing, doesn't, microphone,
Yes, you
screen.
have your Chromebook or?
Yeah, Chromebook.
Yours?
Yeah.
okay?
And I was going, I was looking at the cafeteria community today, and it would scroll through and it said,
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Good, how are you doing?
All right.
Getting ready for action?
Well, hopefully not.
Yes.
Were we called? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, hopefully all of this time and energy is for naught, right? That's the best outcome out of this, that we don't have to do any of this stuff, so. Hopefully. Hopefully.
Kuwait has just said indefinitely.
Is that the
Closing.
term now they're using, indefinitely, huh?
Just for 2 weeks, and they just announced.
And we've heard in Kuwait that they don't honor virtual education.
Yeah.
So they're kind of, at least the American schools are kind of teaching,
Yeah.
but it doesn't count or
Yeah.
something.
They don't accept it in the US?
No, in Kuwait,
Kuwait.
right? Is
Pardon?
that, in Kuwait, they don't count virtual
Yeah,
learning?
no, they're not. I know. Pretty
So
weird.
what
And
they
Saudi
call
just
it?
stopped all schools.
They're
Saudi?
Saudi Arabia,
they're,
all
they're
schools
saying
have
it's
been
not,
stopped except
it can't
around
be
schools.
held towards the
far.
student's cumulative level of learning, so they're what their final grade would be. So whatever they give, they have to, at some point, either they give the grade based on all the information they had while the kids were physically at school, and I think they're just kind of crossing their fingers, hoping that
You go back.
they'll go back.
If they just close indefinitely, they just announced indefinitely.
But is there anything regarding the SAT exam next week or the
Is it
AP
still happening?
exams in May?
So
Is it
here, AP is not sure yet, it's still too far away, but I know we've been talking with College Board,
Yeah,
just to make sure that we have agreement.
yeah.
But the SAT, as far as I know, is still
Still-
scheduled.
yes.
We have not had
It's
any
still
restrictions
scheduled for
imposed
next
on us.
Saturday, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're operating business as
That's
usual,
normal.
with an asterisk that we need to be ready to launch what we're calling distance learning
Yeah.
at this point. So.
Just in case they took any decision regarding the APs in May, are they gonna postpone it? They
Still
will cancel it for
May
this
too
year?
We've contacted the College Board on 3 different occasions now,
Yeah.
and they got back to us this week and said they're still sorting that out. The situation is still in flux. You know, they do have a second date. They have a makeup date that, and they're still eyeing the possibility of using that makeup date for AP exams, which would be very strange, but
Yeah.
Time will tell.
time will tell. They're in the same place that so many places are about what do you do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
I just saw a newspaper article said expatriates can't leave.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Is that true?
yeah.
Yesterday, we called the hotline that Larry sent in the email, because our helper, she's supposed to leave next week for her vacation. And he said, listen, I will tell you, at this moment, she's allowed to travel, but half an hour after, I cannot guarantee because decisions are taken within minutes. So you have to keep
You're allowed to travel, so you're not allowed
contacting
to
and
travel.
asking
Oh, is that
people
right?
that
If you go to a country that is in, less than effective, you're not allowed from that right. I think it's something
But
like
if you have a residency, it might be slightly different.
It depends on.
because that's where it's country.
I mean, expats with residency, they are probably counted like Jordanians. That's a big question. And I'm really in doubt, I mean, think about all those tourists coming from Jordan. I mean,
hey, how are you?
But it depends also which country you come from.
Oh, exactly.
Because
Yeah.
this morning we called the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and they say like you have the bans on certain countries, but if you come from other countries, you can still enter.
but you already have a ban for
Yeah, we're getting
Italy
started here.
for many days. Nothing happened at the
We're getting on the
airport.
live stream right now.
You checked the flights coming from Italy, so I really have my doubts how Jordanian authorities are implementing.
And therein lies my challenge.
Just want us to sit back and
Have
have
a seat, let's we get the room packed.
Give up our seat.
Of course.
Can't say anything now.
Parlay.
Yeah.
It's impressive. Parlay is one of the ones the fifth grade teachers have on there. It's really good. Oh my gosh, did they steal it or make it?
But she has been doing a lot of work throughout the year on independent learning class. And so a lot of that was already pulled together in one place or another. She's put it all in one.
Definitely.
She has a website that she's created, and it's like these are all the tours you can use to manage your time. These are all the tours you can use to manage. These are all the tours you can use and stuff on my website that the kids can.
If I were a teacher, I think if I were a teacher, I would push together a subscription to Parlay, which is it's a distance learning platform where you can design your own lessons, but they have a bunch of probably 100 or maybe more 115 lessons over the year, and they're
I have. I've never
one of them
considered it.
I've always been
a member.
I pick and choose the
Participant, but not a
Yeah.
facilitator.
and then I created a class and I invited Jeff with did you see it?
Give them smart tools.
Yeah, I replied to the assignment.
You did? Oh, did you watch the video? Yeah, you did not.
I swear to God.
What is history?
History.
Yeah.
My
Why study history?
My response is great. Let's just hope it's open to us.
Now, everything I touch, I'm like, how many people have touched this?
Yeah.
Today, only you.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm just gonna welcome, if there's anybody on live stream, do we have anybody on live stream? So if you have questions that you'd like to answer during the live stream, just send an email to school@acsamman.edu.jo. And we'll try to answer your questions. You are all live, welcome. Thank you for showing up. So I am cautiously optimistic that everything we talk about today doesn't happen, but I'm also responsible enough, realist enough to know that it's possible it could, and it could possibly happen in a time frame that we don't really like. So I think it's some unbelievable number, like 350 million children are currently out of schools across the globe due to the coronavirus. Some of those schools had ample time to plan and prepare, some didn't. Two examples of that is all the schools in the UAE. They were informed on, I think, a Tuesday that their last day of school would be that next Sunday. So they had time to prep their kids and their parents, lay out the plans for their community. So last night, different example, last night in Saudi Arabia, the government said, tomorrow, your schools are closed. So, don't really know what the government of Jordan will do or how they'll handle it. So part of this is just trying to push information out to parents. Sure you'll have lots of questions as we go through this. Feel free to ask. I'll try to answer what I can. So kind of my history with this kind of work in schools. I was in Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, when the first kind of haze crisis happened back in the mid-90s. Right, schools were closed for 7 weeks. It was the first real version of online. Really crude, and part of the challenge for us was technology wasn't really fully developed, and so we spent weeks putting together packets of DHL packets to send off to kids who were spread around the world because people left. My wife was 7 months pregnant. She left for 7 weeks, along with half the student population. So that was my first experience with it. The second was when there was a conflict in Russia, and there was the bombing of the Russian White House. The school happened to be right next to it, and so we were off school for 5 weeks then. I've lived through the compound bombings in Riyadh, where we had to close school early May, readjust IB exams, and try to keep kids connected. And then there's the easier ones, which were SARS and MERS, swine flu, and now we have this. So there are thousands of schools that are closed across the world who are engaged in distance learning. What I will present to you isn't my personal creative thinking in my office with the principals going, oh, what should we do here, and how do we do this? Right, there is hundreds and hundreds of examples of distance learning out there that schools are currently engaged in. Some have just started, like schools in Saudi Arabia that are starting today. And there are schools that have been at this for 8 weeks. So we're trying to learn and grow from their experiences as we've implemented this. We've been working on this for quite a while. A lot of what you're going to see has been up here in our heads, going, oh, what would we do with this? And it's conversations we often have when the weather turns bad. We think, okay, is it going to be a snow day? Is it not going to be a snow day? Is it going to be a snow day and no snow? Is it going to be, what is it going to be? So we have a lot of this talking and thinking already taking place. This is us just getting it into print. So this is the hard copy of our distance learning plan. It's about 36 pages. 35 of those pages probably you don't ever want to read. It's just for our internal thinking and looking, and at some point, if we move to a distance learning platform, we'll be sharing this information with you, the appropriate information for you. So, with that, I'm just going to walk through some of our thinking, what we hope, what we want, what we aspire to, lessons learned. This last Friday, I was on a Zoom meeting with about 100 heads of schools from around the world. It was facilitated by an organization called the Association for the Advancement of International Education. And it was just the collective wisdom of people who have been through this before, because this isn't the first time this has happened. Talking to heads of schools who've been at this for 8 weeks, talking to heads of schools who are just thinking about it now, and everybody in between. It was about an hour and a half, and of course, we're all sharing information and resources, and then trying to package it so it fits our communities and our schools. So, with that, as we rely on technology for So, the next 45 minutes or so, what we'll go through is how do we want to deal with this? What are the learning platforms? How to support the learning of your child's well-being? So, for many of us, this will be new. How many of you have ever taken an online class? Oh, good. So this is not unfamiliar to you and what it looks like. For our kids, and trying to do it at this mass level will be pretty new to us, pretty new to you, and new to your kids. So we'll learn together, support each other, because what we know from colleagues is your kids and parents, maybe, for the first 5 days or so will be like, woo, yeah, we're online, we're distance. By week 8, it will be miserable, because kids will want to be back in school. You as parents don't know where you will be. But part of that, but part of that will be the support of each other, because what we know is school will do what we can to support you, but you're also going to have to rely on each other in whatever ways you're comfortable in doing that. The needs and expectations will evolve over time, because we have what we think is an awesome plan, well thought out, well detailed, will be well communicated, but what we know is as soon as it launches, there will be lots of feedback about, oh yeah, we didn't think of that, or here's how I'm experiencing it as a parent with my kids, or these are my particular circumstances. So we want to be nimble, we want to be flexible in saying, how are you experiencing this as parents? How are your kids experiencing it as learners? And how are we as a school experiencing it as educators? And then embrace the ambiguity. Over the last 3 days, and in particular, the email I sent to parents yesterday, that's generated lots of discussion. Lots of, can you please clarify questions? And my response basically is, yeah, I don't really know. It's really interesting because when the newspapers started coming out about the presentation by the Minister of Health, I really saw once again the nuances of the Arabic language, because we had people going, well, this word means this. It's like, no, that it doesn't mean that, it means this. So trying to decipher that information has been quite challenging as we try to make decisions. And we're trying to make decisions in a timely way, because I know spring break is pressing down on us, and people are trying to either book or cancel or change plans, or not. And if people aren't, we're trying to be really clear about what happens upon their return. So I'll try to answer questions today. If you have them, if I can't, I'll tell you I can't, or I just don't know. So as we've created and crafted our distance learning program, we've thought a lot about age appropriateness. So how a grade 2 student experiences their work will be very different than how a 7th grader experiences. It will be very different than how a 12th grader experiences it. We know some of you have multiple kids, multiple divisions. How you experience it as a parent, for as much as we're trying to be consistent, it's just different. And it may require you to push yourself a little bit about learning different platforms or not. We've had lots of feedback about, well, why aren't you using Zoom, or why aren't you using this platform and that platform? And the response, I think our thinking has been, we have to stay with what we know. Because right now we can't be trying to teach kids, parents, some new platform that they're unfamiliar with, because we just believe that that will create more frustrations. If we're 7 weeks into this and it's not working, we may come back out and say, you know what, we've just purchased this platform and we're going to learn it together. Though I remain optimistic that we won't close. So it's really easy. Well, what we know is that some kids will thrive and some kids will struggle. What my colleagues around the world say, those kids who love school and they love the structure of school and they love the feedback from teachers and they love to be in front of the class, those are the kids that are going to struggle the most. The kids that are more independent learners and kind of like to learn alone, they're the ones who may thrive more, just depending on character, depending on personality, which is really interesting, right? Just because it's a whole different framework around learning and working together. So it's really easy for me to go down into the rabbit hole of, oh my God, like what? Like the anxiety piece and the fear piece and the, are we doing the right thing piece and who touched this and that's not a place any of us need to be. Where we need to be is, let's look at this as an opportunity. This will be an opportunity for our kids to learn some new skills. Maybe a great opportunity for you as parents to spend some more time with your kids in a very different setting. It may be an opportunity to slow the pace of school. And you can probably fill in the blank with what opportunities do you see as well. So the beginning point is, right, we need to make sure all your communication is up to date. Right, that comes from Power School. If you want us communicating to you in a different way, a different email, you need to get onto Power School and you need to provide us with the most updated information. Email information, telephone information, whatever else is there. At some point I'll send a note out to the community again and I'll give you the link to how you can get into Power School if you have forgotten your password or make sure you have passwords and information available and make sure you have technology available. Not sure exactly what that means, but if the government says no schools are open tomorrow, are you going to be ready at home for that? And laptops, chargers, right? The other piece that somebody brought up at the meeting this morning was, what is the bandwidth like at your house? Yeah. If you have 3 kids and you're still using kind of dial-up, it's probably not going to work for you. So I have no idea the process you as parents need to check your bandwidth and to make sure it's ready.
And each kid would need their own laptop, right?
Most likely. We'll talk a little bit about that. So, managing information and news. Misinformation is the enemy of good decision making. I felt that yesterday when I was getting all these emails. Oh, the Minister of Health said this and this and this, and it's all in Arabic, and here's what it means. And I wasn't really sure exactly what the Minister of Health said or the Prime Minister said about foreigners leaving the country and coming back, and talked about migrant workers and like migrant foreign workers, and I'm like, well, I mean, I guess I'm a migrant foreign worker, and if I leave, am I going to get back? And right, I have a residence card. Does that make me kind of Jordanian? So that's the ambiguity piece. Please verify anything you are sharing before you share it. You all work in communities, right? Office buildings, organizations. The rumor mill is a deathly way to get information out. Oh, I heard from so-and-so who heard from so-and-so that said this. WhatsApp groups, social media makes it easy for inaccuracies to spread. I know there are lots of parent WhatsApp groups there. They're really easy because oftentimes not attributed. It's like, well, I was just in the parking lot and I heard that, boom, sends it out, and then all of a sudden All that information is out there, none of it's accurate. And I'm not saying the WhatsApp group creates inaccurate information, I'm just saying we need to be careful. So my intent was to have the poster embedded here, but Keith, who's the high school principal, and I'm sorry, I probably should have introduced everybody. I will after this. And I'm trying to figure out how I can embed this into our plan.
Right now, and we'll put it in.
And this poster actually was given, my wife found it when we were going through a bit of space with my personal children at home, 2 girls, 2 years apart. And there were days I was just like, oh my, like, who are these people? And so we posted this on their mirrors in their bathrooms and in their closet doors, and it's always nice to refer back to. So as you engage with each other, as you engage with teachers, administration, as your kids are engaging with other kids, I would ask you to take this and be your guide.
Don't use this.
Is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? Is it kind? And if the answer to any of those is no, then shut it down. And you'll all be responsible. We're asking you as parents to be responsible. So we have Keith, who's the high school principal. In the back, thank you, Keith. Fine job.
It's in the hallway if anybody wants.
All right.
It's right outside my office for good reason. We have Michael Kellison, who's the middle school principal, Jeff Willis, who's the middle school, high school, secondary assistant principal, and we have Michelle, who's the elementary principal with us. So I'm gonna kind of segue into roles and responsibilities. There is supposed to be a slide here that talks about the platforms we use, but it's at the end of this presentation, and I just didn't get it moved up to the proper place, so we'll talk a little bit about this. So we're trying to define our roles and responsibilities so there is somewhat clarity. The communication piece to all of this is really important, so a lot of our work ties to communication. Looking at what those communication pathways are they clear, are they open, and are we responding in a timely way? Supporting families and making connections to services that your kids may be getting, and that ties to if they're ELL kids, if they're in learning support, if they're in speech language therapy, or other, if they're meeting with a counselor on a regular basis. We want those to continue, and we want them to be as seamless as possible, with the understanding that it will be different, but still trying to provide it. We want to make sure that learning opportunities are available to all the learners. Again, may not be exactly what they're getting in school, but different. And then we're hoping that we have time to have a smooth transition to this process. Kind of what we're hoping for is that we'll have a day or two where the government will say on this day, schools will close, and we'll have time to make sure kids have their laptops and machinery. The elementary probably will get packets of stuff to take home. That's what we hope for. That's a little bit more complicated in the fact that we have spring break. Kind of my fear is that the government will close schools while we're on spring break. And then everybody will have to come back. Or we'll have to figure out how do we open up the school for parents and kids to come in? Will the government let us? So I have a good friend who's the head of school in Milan, right at the middle of all this. The government said, you're closed tomorrow. He said to the staff, well, come back in and get your stuff. They showed up the next morning. There were police at the door saying, no, you have to go home. You shouldn't be out here. You cannot come in here. So that's embracing the ambiguity of, we've talked Michelle has talked about setting up a drive-through at ACS, right, where if need be, elementary parents can come, but we have packets, we give them to kids, kids as they drive through without stopping. So this is all the kind of stuff we're just gonna have to make up, possibly, as we go.
You just answered one of my questions.
Which was what?
If the school is closed and we need to contact some teachers, can we still, as parents, come to the school and talk to somebody?
Possibly.
Maybe, yeah.
Don't know.
Depends on the decision.
I don't know if it's appropriate to joke, but I was gonna say, well, if you get a clearance from Al-Bashir Hospital that you're healthy,
Then you
come
can
in. So teachers, what we really want is to create meaningful, authentic learning experiences for them. What we know, and this comes consistently from everybody who's currently doing this kind of work, is that it's not going to be to the standard that you would get if you were in a classroom with the teacher, with the social interactions. That we know. But we want it to be authentic, we want it to be meaningful, we want it to be relevant. Again, going back to the communication with families, it's really important that we are connected with you as a school, that you are connected with other families, and that your kids, maybe most importantly, are connected with each other. What that looks like, we don't know. Are you comfortable as a parent sending your kids over to somebody else's house to have kind of a play date or for them to hang out? Is that going to be allowed, or is Vermont going to become a ghost town? Right? These are all things we don't know. But we do know that the social piece is important. Is it going to be face-to-face? Probably not. Is it going to be online over a screen? Possibly. We want to respond in a timely manner, looking at creating resources in a variety of mediums, which goes kind of back to, we don't want your kids sitting in front of a screen all day. What does that look like? How do we do that? What do you as parents need to do to support that as well? Collaborate with other teachers. So what we want is, if you have a third grade child in one class, then another third grade child in another class is getting relatively the same experience. And then we're looking at how to provide regular office hours, so as parents, kids connect with teachers, with counselors, with other support. That's still in the creative phase. And what that, just so there's opportunities to make sure that you feel connected to the school. And what it looks like on the third day may be very different than what that looks like on the 9th week. So parents, kind of your role, what we've learned and what the feedback is from the day this starts. If this starts. Right? It's important that you set routines for your kids. Okay? We are planning on a school day of 10 to 2. That's interaction work with teachers. There will probably be times where your kids are asked to do homework or read outside of this time. But setting those routines. Right? Getting kids up at a certain time, making sure that the routines are followed as consistently as you possibly can. Because what we know is kids like the routines. When there's not routines, anxiety grows. Define the physical space for your child's learning. Some of you may already have places for your kids where they do their homework at home. It's really important that they have that space. And it's really important that that space is not in their bedrooms with the door closed. Some families say, no, we like to have the family around the table so we can see everything. And some people say it would be a disaster if my 2 kids were at the same table with the distractions. So again, this comes back to you as families, knowing your kids. But finding that consistent space, so when they sit down, when they go to it, it's, okay, it's time to learn. Monitor communication. You know, there's a great saying in schools that we say, if you will make an agreement that if you believe half of what your kids bring home to you from school, we'll believe half of what they bring to us about what's happening at home, right? So, look at the communication coming from your kids, trust, but verify. Because of my own personal kids, Dad, like everybody's going to that party. Like everybody? I'm not going. No, nobody's doing this homework, or, right? Yeah, it's done already, or whatever. Begin each day with a check-in, right? So get your kids engaged, get it going, and we'll help you with these things. If we move to a distance learning format, we'll be pushing information out to you about, here are questions you can ask, here are things you can do, here are ideas. Yes?
I'm just asking because my friend is going through this in Bahrain now, and they're on Google Classroom as well. And for example, with Layla, with the my elementary child, I'm not worried because everything is communicated to us. But with KC, where everything is going to him as a middle schooler, I'm not connected to his, I can review his results or his assessments or grades, but I can't review his emails, the emails that are coming to him about his homework and everything. So she was saying that she's connected, she has their Google Classrooms connected to her emails, so anything they receive, she's receiving. So can that be done? How, or can you help us set that up somehow? Because again, with
I hear
middle
I see
schoolers-
heads nodding. So part of why the principals are here. So when we were thinking about this presentation, they said to me, like,